this video, I'd like to share some of my research into how the third eye of the ancient Hindus in India, shown here on the right, was identical to the third eye in ancient Egypt, shown here on the left. Now, I've titled this image, "The Egyptian Third Eye Sees the Inner Soul," because this is what the third eye in both India and Egypt signified. Our third eye sees our soul within, and we become empowered by this experience. Just as the Hindus used the symbolism of two eyes flanking a third eye dot in the middle, so the Egyptians used the same motif, two eyes flanking a third eye dot in the middle. Two eyes, third eye dot in the middle. Two eyes, third eye dot. It's the same motif exactly. And this shows a deep Hindu-Egyptian cross-cultural connection that's really gone unrecognized by most people. I learned a lot about the third eye during a trip I took to Egypt in 1996. I actually lived in Cairo for a short while in the fall of that year. That's me on the horse in front of one of the pyramids of Abu Sir. I spent long hours at the Cairo Museum, where I studied artifacts that I had never really seen before outside Egypt, never in books or museums. Many of them had the third eye on the forehead, very obviously, like this coffin. And looking at these artifacts made it clear to me that there is, embedded in the oldest layers of the ancient Egyptian religion, a very powerful Hindu-like third eye tradition. It was easy to see, as we move on to the next image here, that Egypt's sun disk symbol, the Aten, was used in the position of the third eye dot. That's to say, the Aten sun disk is the third eye dot. It was placed between the two eyes, as we see here, to symbolize the third eye. Now, why? Why was the Aten, Egypt's sun symbol, used as the third eye? The reason is because the sun is a symbol of the soul, the source. And when it's depicted here on the forehead, it expresses the idea that the third eye sees the sun within, the soul within. The source is within us, you see? That's what the Egyptians are saying. So the Aten has two meanings, and both meanings are illustrated here. On one hand, the Aten symbolizes the soul. But the Aten also symbolizes the third eye because, as you can see here on the left, we have some Egyptian coffins showing the third eye Aten on the forehead. Here on the right, I just took these same images and made them black and white and kept the Aten symbol in color so you can better see how the Aten was placed on the forehead to symbolize the third eye. Now let's read the quote here. The Aten stands for the awakened third eye that sees the soul within, or sun within, which soul or sun is really the higher self, or divine spark within us. The Aten is thus a symbol of both the third eye and the soul within that the awakened third eye sees. The third eye became outlawed with the rise of monotheism. Monotheism shifted divinity from something within us to something outside us. Groups like the Inquisition banned pagan symbols, forcing them underground. It was during this time that the Aten became the caduceus. In fact, the Aten and the caduceus are a perfect match, but with one exception. The caduceus has a giant vertical pole. In Egypt, this pole was called the Jed column. And according to scholars, it symbolized the spinal column of the god Osiris. This is the same meaning as the vertical pole on the caduceus, a spinal column. In Kundalini Yoga, this vertical pole is called the Sushumna. To awaken the third eye, the Sushumna must be balanced on both sides by the twin opposing Ida and Pingala channels, which match the two serpents on the caduceus and the two serpents on the Aten. On the Aten symbol, one serpent faces right, the other serpent faces left, and this symmetrical balance clearly indicates an awakened third eye, just like on the caduceus and just like in Kundalini Yoga. So there's much more to the story, and in part 2 we'll look more deeply into the Aten symbol and we'll see how Egypt's triptych temples always displayed the Aten third eye above the centered doorway. Three-part video. We saw how the third eye was shared by both the Hindus and the Egyptians, two ancient civilizations that evolved separately, thousands of miles apart. We saw how Egypt's sun symbol, the Aten, shown here on the left, had a dual meaning. It symbolized the third eye dot worn on the forehead, but it also symbolized the inner soul that the awakened third eye sees. Here in part 2, we'll take a closer look at the Aten. If the Aten was a symbol of the soul, as we discussed in the previous video, then the icons that decorate the Aten reveal secrets of the soul. And we can see those secrets right here by comparing the Aten to another ancient symbol, China's Taijitu, better known as the yin-yang. The two are a perfect match. Egypt's Aten is a circle balancing twin opposites. China's Taijitu is a circle balancing twin opposites. It's the same symbol, and they share the same meaning. Both symbolize the soul. How? Well, first, both symbols are circles. Circles because, with no beginning and no end, the circle has always symbolized eternity among ancient cultures. Next, both circles are balancing twin serpents. Look at these twin serpents emerging from the Aten circle and flanking the Aten circle. They're symmetrically balanced. One serpent faces right, the other serpent faces left. Now, look here. One serpent wears the white crown of Upper Egypt. The other serpent wears the red crown of Lower Egypt. These two crowns signify the two kingdoms or two lands into which Egypt was divided in prehistory, and they were considered perfect opposites, like two halves of the same whole, or two faces of the same coin. They're called the two serpents of Upper and Lower Egypt, and they're featured on China's Taijitu. The yin serpent's black with a white eye, the yang serpent's white with a black eye. And they don't have to be serpents. They can be whales or dragons or whatever. Doesn't matter. That's not the point. Whatever they are, the message is clear. Egypt's Aten is a circle, balancing twin opposites. China's Taijitu is a circle, balancing twin opposites. It's the same symbol, but Egyptologists haven't recognized it. This is actually ironic, because this parallel fits perfectly with established Egyptology, as we're told here by Dr. Richard Wilkinson. The phenomenon of duality pervades Egyptian culture and is at the heart of the Egyptian concept of the universe itself. But rather than focusing on the essential differences between the two parts of a given pair, Egyptian thought may stress their complementary nature as a way of expressing the essential unity of existence through the alignment and harmonization of opposites. Now, as I said, the Aten is a symbol of the soul, and this means that the symbols that decorate the Aten reveal secrets of the soul. So going back to our last photo, we can see that the twin serpents, which parallel the twins yin and yang of China as we saw a minute ago, and which parallel the twin Ida and Pingala channels of India as we saw in part 1, the twin serpents are explaining one very important power that the soul has, the power of duality. Now, what does that mean? It means we all have the power of duality within us, within our soul. We have the power to manifest duality, and both the Chinese and Egyptians and the Hindus knew it. Think of it like this. The circle of the Aten and the circle of the Taijitu metaphysically symbolize the number 0, non-materiality, the circle of the soul on its own, emptied of matter. The twin serpents on Egypt's Aten and the yin and yang of China's Taijitu show how we have the power within us. Our souls have the power to manifest duality. And that's what life is in this world. We're manifesting our dualities. We're having a dream of ourselves. That's the famous occult way of putting it. And the way we do it is by manipulating those twin dualities inherent in our soul into a material creation. So we are the God. We are the eternal soul, the light. We've made a creation and we've incarnated inside it. We've used the duality inherent in our own being to create a world, and this is the single greatest concept of the perennial philosophy. And this quote ties it all together. The twin serpents were often depicted wearing the white and red crowns of Upper and Lower Egypt, showing us that Egypt's Aten perfectly parallels China's Taijitu or yin-yang symbol. The serpent of Upper Egypt wearing the white crown parallels Yang. The serpent of Lower Egypt wearing the red crown parallels Yin. And just as Yin and Yang are encompassed by the Tao circle of eternity, so the Aten circle organizes Egypt's twin serpents into a higher unity, balancing them in perfect equilibrium. Egypt's Aten circle and China's Taijitu circle both symbolize the soul, and Egypt's twin serpents and China's yin and yang serpents both symbolize the soul's power to manifest duality. Now, to be sure, the Aten and the Taijitu are both three-part symbols, three-in-one symbols, the soul centered between duality. This is why the Egyptians carved the Aten symbol in architecture above the center door of what I call Egypt's triptych temples. This is something else I recognized when I was in Egypt in 1996. There are triptych temples everywhere, and no scholar or Egyptologist or anyone has ever written anything about it. Here are three triptych temples. There's one up here. The door in the middle is wider than the two doors flanking it. There's a triptych here in the middle. The door in the middle is wider than the two doors flanking it. And a triptych here on the bottom. The door in the middle is wider than the two doors flanking it. Now, the wall painting here on the left shows the third eye Aten in the form of the Shen symbol of eternity. And as we can see here, this is the very same symbol that crowns the center door of each one of Egypt's triptych temples. Why were these triptych temples crowned with the third eye Aten? Because these were temples of third eye awakenings. That's to say, the Egyptians built triptych temples with a third eye Aten symbol crowning the center door because these were temples of third eye awakenings. Know thyself. That's the aphorism that was written on the forecourt of the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. Know thyself. This was the Egyptian way of saying, know thyself. The triptych temple's three-door facade holds the very same meaning as the Aten that crowns it. The twin outer doors symbolize balanced duality, while the larger center door symbolizes the center balanced between duality. In Written in Stone, I show how ancient triptych temples across the world all carried this same balance of opposites meaning. In Mexico, the basic concept of the Maya religion and that of Mesoamerica in general is harmony of opposites, Mercedes de la Garza. In Egypt, the deeply rooted Egyptian tendency is to understand the world as a series of pairs of contrasts, balanced in unchanging equilibrium. Egyptian thought is that a totality comprises opposites, Henry Frankfurt. In Asia, the ability to see the harmony is nowhere more prominent than in Indian theology. Transcending of all pairs of opposites is central to Hindu thought. Stephen Rosen. So we can see here, it was all the same religion. It was all the same wisdom tradition, and so back to the beginning. This short video is, in essence, just trying to show you a very brief summary of my research into the third eye in Egypt. The Egyptian third eye exists, it's very real, and it's a complete parallel to the Hindu third eye. In the next and final video, the third of three, I'll show you how some human head pots created by the ancient Mississippian culture of North America depict the third eye Aten sun on the forehead, just like the ancient Egyptians. I hope you enjoyed this brief video. We'll see evidence that the ancient Egyptians in Africa, shown here on the right, and the ancient Mississippian culture of America, shown here on the left, shared the same third eye religion, even though these two ancient civilizations evolved separately, thousands of miles apart on opposite sides of the Atlantic Ocean. Now that's a big claim, and big claims require big evidence, and we can see that big evidence right here in this image. Both the ancient Egyptians and the ancient Mississippians were pyramid-building cultures, and we can see that here. But there's an even greater parallel that these two cultures shared, the third eye. Now, we'll get to the third eye in the ancient Mississippian culture in a second. First, on the Egyptian side, here we can see a clear example of the third eye forehead dot. Two eyes flanking a larger third eye dot in the middle. In the first two videos, I explain the symbolism surrounding the third eye forehead dot in Egypt, and I do this by showing similarities to the third eye forehead dot in India, as you can see here. I show how the third eye was visible in Egyptian art and architecture, but more importantly, I show how Egypt's Aten or sun emblem was the third eye symbol in Egypt.